So Jay,
Mm-hmm.
we interviewed Carmindy.
We did.
We have a celebrity on the podcast,
We do.
and the celebrity wanted to come on our podcast. We didn't even have to beg.
She did.
We're so lucky. I can't wait for you guys to hear this interview. She was so much better. I knew she was going to be amazing, but she like exceeded expectations.
100%.
She's a
class act.
class act, and she's a true intuitive girl.
Indefinitely.
I am very excited for you guys to hear this. Carmindy, I loved her on What Not to Wear. If you heard the episode where I talked about, or we talked about it's brave to not wear makeup, you heard me gush about her, and that's how we connected.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited for you guys to hear. She has some really awesome things to say.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, Jay.
Hey.
We have a very special guest on our podcast today, and I am trying not to freak out. Like, I'm trying to be cool about it. I don't think I'm pulling it off.
Your eyes are definitely a little glassy.
We have Carmindy here. Will you introduce Carmindy to the people?
Yes, I would love to. Carmindy is a New York-based editorial makeup artist, beauty and lifestyle expert, TV personality, author, speaker, and entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience in beauty. Her work has been published in Allure, Elle, InStyle, Bazaar, Condé Nast Traveler, Town & Country, O, and many more. For over a decade, millions of viewers counted on Carmindy to teach them her insider makeup tricks on TLC's hit show, What Not to Wear. But what really inspired her viewers was her confidence-boosting attitude towards everyone. Carmindy taught them how to see their unique beauty and stop any negative commentary going on in their heads. We're here for that.
Oh, yes.
She showed that all people of all ages, skin tones, possessing all types of features had the right to love and celebrate themselves. Yeah. This inclusive way of looking at beauty differently inspired her to create Carmindy Beauty, a streamlined collection of affordable color cosmetics for everyone on Amazon. Known for her universal 5-minute face technique, Carmindy delivers the natural look alternative. With Carmindy Beauty, you can find your inner light and allow it to shine through.
Yay! Welcome, Carmindy.
I'm so excited to be here with you guys. I love your podcast because intuition is everything. So this is so cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we first connected over the podcast because
episode.
I might have been gushing about Carmindy on we were talking about makeup. So the whole point of that episode was like, is it brave to not wear makeup? Which is like a very complicated question, right?
Pamela Anderson has been doing recently.
Yes. And we kind of came to the conclusion that unfortunately the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to know, Carmindy, what are your thoughts on that whole thing of like wearing makeup, not wearing makeup, like what Pamela Anderson's doing? I'd love to hear what you think about all that.
Well, first of all, to say it's brave is silly. I don't think it's brave. I think it's real. And what Pamela Anderson's doing, I think many more people need to embrace that. It's not an all or nothing situation. We have to be comfortable in our own skin, wearing nothing on our faces. Only then can makeup be applied and used as a tool of empowerment and not insecurity. So what she's doing, she went from one extreme to another, which I think is awesome because it shows that you can change and become more confident as you get older. What I'm seeing are these younger girls who are, I mean, there's going to be plenty of time for needing makeup that don't need so much makeup, not feeling comfortable being barefaced. And that I think is an issue. And that's where they need to practice their bravery and being able to feel good within themselves.
That's such an important distinction, I think, like feeling like you have to have makeup on or really wanting to have makeup on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't you feel too like there's a lot of trends going on now where like the reason for wearing makeup isn't to like enhance how you look or for your own confidence or to like show your features anymore. It's sort of like to contour in a weird way to look like someone else.
To sort of fit in.
To me, it's outrageous because it's literally a generation of people cloning themselves to look like one ideal beauty type. And there's no such thing as an ideal beauty type. If you look through history, going back to like, you go to the 50s, you go to the 30s, you can go to the 1800s, you can go back thousands of years. Beauty standards change every decade for thousands of years. So there is not one set idea of beauty. What makes beauty interesting is differences and uniqueness. That is what beauty is. I always compare it, even in some of the books I've written, to either a garden or a museum. If you go into a beautiful garden, you see many different types of plants and flowers, right? That's what makes it beautiful. It's not just one. If you go into a museum, there's all kinds of different mediums and paintings and styles. That's what makes it a museum. But I think if we're all trying to clone ourselves to look like one specific look, it becomes boring. It becomes, I think it takes away from our individuality, our specialness, our uniqueness. And I think it can be quite dangerous, especially when the younger girls don't feel confident being their unique self. And I think that's why I looked back at ancient civilizations. When they started using makeup, it was for power, fertility, celebration, ritual. It wasn't because they didn't like their double chin or they wanted to recontour their cheekbones. Only now we're doing that. Let's go back to the original form of celebrating ourselves and celebrating life through adornment.
Carmindy is like a true intuitive girl.
She is. I was
You
just
are like legit.
I was just gonna
intuitive
say
girl.
that. I was just gonna say, like, because what you're talking about is really real intuition, which is like knowing yourself and like finding the parts of yourself that you want to shine and like shine to other people. And like, so that's exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I've always loved that, like originally people would wear makeup like in honor of different goddesses and things. Like the color would be chosen for that reason. And like, I'm like, we should get back to that, please.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's so important. And I think that that's what, you know, there's wonderful things about social media, wonderful things where we can find our community. We have an ability to have a platform to speak our truth, but also the negative side is that people think that, oh gosh, I have to follow this trend, otherwise I don't fit in. So as advanced as we're becoming as women, why are we becoming more insecure? You have the choice, right? So whenever I hear, oh, society, well, we are society. So it's up to us to change it. And you, if you follow somebody or if you follow like trends that make you feel bad about yourself, you stop following them. It's that simple. You can literally follow something that makes you feel empowered and makes you feel good and makes you kind of get out of that slump. It's like the old days before, you know, social media, and you'd go to the nail salon and there would be the rag mags, right? And you would open it, be like celebrities without makeup or celebrities with cellulite. Well, that was just a form of bullying. I used to put down the magazines. Well, now you have to literally just stop following people that make you feel bad about yourself.
It's so true. Like, I think in the world of intuition, we see this a lot where there's like Jamie's favorite joke, I'm going to use your line, is like, you know, you have to get up at 4 a.m. and meditate for like 3 hours and then drink a green smoothie to be intuitive, right? It's that same sort of messaging that's here in like, I mean, basically anything women touch, that messaging is there. But like, it's that same message of like, everything has to be done this one way. Where to be truly intuitive, it has to be done the way that feels good to you, right? Like the way that you feel great.
That's right. Every woman is born with intuition, period.
Yeah.
Every, and it doesn't matter your religion. It doesn't matter your environment. It doesn't matter your age. You can tap into it. But I feel that the real way to tap into intuition is hard today because you have to get quiet. And we're living in a world where we're not quiet. We're constantly online. We're constantly running around. We're constantly listening to music. We're never still and quiet. If you take that time to be still and quiet, your intuition's blaring.
Speaking of being quiet, I would love to know like how you see the word intuition, what your relationship to that word has been. Like, did you grow up connected to that? Did you find it later? Like, I would just love to hear that from you.
Yes, I was a very, very intuitive child, born that way. I mean, it caused some issues because I always felt like an outsider and I always felt a little strange. But at the same time, it led me to create the exact life that I wanted because I was always working off my intuition. My biggest struggle, especially I would say in my 20s and 30s, is trying to decipher the difference between fear and intuition, right? And you're like, oh, I'm just being afraid. And you're like, nope, that was intuition. Or sometimes they'd be like, no, it's my intuition not to do that. And then I wound up being wrong because that was actually fear. So as you get older and you start, like I said, being quiet and really resonating and learning lessons when you do make those mistakes, it starts to become easier to decipher between fear and intuition. The
Yeah,
intuition is a settling feeling. Even if it's saying stay away or go away, it's a little more settling. Fear has anxiety attached to it,
yeah.
which I don't think intuition has.
Agreed. I think that's why people have trouble really understanding intuition. I mean, we get asked a lot, like, how do I know it's my intuition? Because your intuition is very quiet. Like it just exists. It speaks once. Like it's not repeating itself like fear, and it's not causing a lot of, even though it is emotion, it's not causing a lot of emotion.
Right.
It's just desire, right? So
Yes.
and we have this like really complicated relationship to desire, even the word in our culture.
Mhm.
So it's really hard for people to go like, oh, like, unfortunately, there's no dove that floats down from the sky and hands you a letter that says like, this is what your intuition says.
Right.
It,
Correct.
it's something that everyone's born with, right? It's like a spectrum, we always
Right.
say. Everyone's like somewhere on it. And it's
Yes.
the more intuitive you are, the more kind of normal it is, right?
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
not a big loud parade.
No.
It's just
No, it's subtle. It's so subtle. And I find as I get older, I'm getting more and more in tune with that intuition, especially towards other people. I'm very good at being intuitive towards other people. Sometimes a little harder for yourself, right? Because your desires, your wants, what you wish things to happen. So it's if you're a little confused, if you don't know about your own intuition, sometimes give it to others. And then all of a sudden you'll see that you start becoming a little more clear about yourself and your choices.
absolutely. I mean, it's always like you're in that room and you hear, like, maybe you're hearing someone talk and they're like asking a question intuitively. And like for you, you can answer it for them, no problem. And like
Right.
they can't see it. And you're like, how do they not see it? But when it's yourself, it's the same
Different.
way. I mean,
Yeah.
we are constantly doing that for each other,
Yeah.
like, and we're
Right.
very intuitive, but like when it comes to yourself, like all your fear, all like the vows you have written and rules for yourself and insecurities are there making everything so murky. So it's so much harder.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I mean, being really young, I just knew things that I stuck with. I knew as a child that I was never going to have my own children.
Oh, really?
Knew it. It was, and it wasn't a sad thing. It was a knowing. And I was totally fine with it. And I was probably 10 years old, 9 years old. And I just knew never going to have kids. I'm okay with it. I knew I was going to travel the world. I knew that I wanted to get into beauty when I was 13, 14 years old. By the time I was 15, I started doing it. I knew I would never work for like a company, and I knew I would have a different experience every day. These are the things that I just knew. And so it gave me those kind of those jets behind me to keep going in the direction, even though I might not have known what path it was. I just knew to go forward and
Yeah.
that the path would just kind of unfold.
And that's desire, right? Like all those things you're listing are the things you knew you desired or didn't desire. And
Yeah.
that's how you know an intuitive kid. That's I always say that 'cause we get asked that a lot. It's like, do they know what they want? Do they know what they don't want? That's an
Right.
intuitive kid, and knowing those things about yourself for
Yeah.
sure. But I also love that you are describing what I think is claircognizance.
I was gonna ask you if you knew which Claire was yours, like the different types of like psychic knowing, and you just, I mean, I would definitely say you're claircognizant.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Tell me what it is. I
Well,
love it.
Jamie's the queen. Jamie's number one. So we all have all the clairs, right? It's like the psychic senses. I don't love the word psychic, but that's
Right.
the term, right?
Yeah.
So
Clairvoyant.
clairvoyant is like seeing. So that's me. Like I see images of things, right? But claircognizance is clair knowing. Like you just inside know something. And there's
Yeah.
Jamie's, that's her number one.
Right.
So we get
Yeah.
excited because I don't think that one's talked about a lot, where it's literally like what you're describing. Like I just knew this and I can't tell you why, and I just know it.
Well,
Yeah.
we talked a lot about how claircognizant is hard because it's no different than your own sort of like thinking inside voice. So it's easy
Yes.
to question yourself, like you were saying earlier, like, is this anxiety or is this intuition? And when it's
Mhm.
actually seeing things, you're not actually hearing things. Um, but you're just knowing things, sometimes it's harder to reconcile and like trust yourself with that. But it sounds like
Yeah.
you've made that journey into trusting yourself.
Yes.
It took a long time. I mean, because I'm a very reactive person and I jump off the cliff and then I'm like, without thinking things through sometimes, which makes life exciting, also anxiety causing
Yeah.
because sometimes it doesn't work out and then you got to like backtrack and be like, all right, next time.
Mhm.
But I think that at this age, I'm not jumping as quickly. I'm thinking things through a little bit. I'm still taking risks, obviously, because that's just I live on the edge of risk. That's just why I'm here on this planet. But I'm doing it in a safer way than I did when I was younger, where
Yeah.
it was just like throw caution to the wind and we'll figure it out on the back end. Well, that got me into some trouble.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
I think you're also describing the journey into intuition and ego,
Correct.
which is learning how to balance your desire and your fear. Like, fear gets a bad rap, right? Like, because I mean, it's not fun,
Right.
right?
And it can be all consuming.
Absolutely. But like it is there to help you if you learn how to do what I think you were describing, which is like, okay, I desire this, but let me also listen to my fear and then let me do what I'm going to do with all of the information. Like that's just
correct.
the journey, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I say that I'm never fearless. I have fear, but I do it anyway.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I mean, it's some, and if I think it's dangerous, then I'll be, but I need to do it, then I'll try to do it now in a little bit more easy way to slow step it, but if you Americans just don't like change in general, and I think that change is scary, but without taking the risk of change, there's no growth. And so I think as women, we have to really lean into the scary sometimes to really see some big, beautiful changes.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that. Now, you mentioned sort of like knowing who you are and like knowing what you're here to do.
Yeah.
So I want to know because going back to what not to wear a little bit, I don't want to talk about that the whole time because I'm sure
No, it
you'll.
was great. I just had a sleepover with Stacy London.
Oh, that's so cool.
Exciting.
I love that.
Nice.
I think what stood out to me, and I know it's the same for Jamie, but with you on that show was that you weren't just doing people's makeup.
No.
Like you were obviously being very intuitive. Obviously, you're very empathic also. And like you were shifting their mood, altering their state. You were being clearly handed everyone's insecurities, just like puked at you, I'm sure.
Instantly. Yeah.
Yeah. And but then you did it with such polish and such like in such a way that like the people watching were feeling better about themselves
Right,
as the
exactly.
person in the chair. I mean, because let's be honest, they didn't always love their hair. Sometimes the clothes were a journey, right? But like I never saw anyone leave your makeup chair without feeling good about
Right.
themselves. So do you feel like that sort of journey, or like how would you word like that part of your gift and what you're here to do?
That what not to wear was an absolute divine gift. That's the best. I just got chills when I said it because
I did too. I did too.
it's nothing that I went after. So growing up, I was the overweight kid, braces, teased, bullied, made fun of, insecure, like you couldn't believe. And getting into makeup, and my mom was a watercolorist. I learned how to redefine what beauty is, how to changed the way I felt about myself. And I started reading books like The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success and Creative Visualization. But I started practicing, these creative ways of feeling good. And when I went after the fashion industry, I intuitively knew that I wanted real beauty to show through. So I was always known as the light-handed makeup artist. I was never hired to do the over-the-top makeup looks for magazine covers or even in the editorials. I was always hired to do the very natural look, the skincare campaigns, the girls on the beach and Elle jumping, like very, very real, very natural. And so when What Not to Wear came, I was able to give that gift that I had learned through makeup in a way that worked on every woman, no matter where in the world she was. If she was in Idaho and a mom of four, or she was a retiree, or somebody that just survived breast cancer, I was able to give not just the artistry that I knew in the fashion industry, but what I had learned about feeling good about yourself and how it's really about changing your mindset and reprogramming your brain on what's beautiful and stopping that negative commentary of, well, I don't look like Cindy Crawford, so I'm not beautiful. That is ridiculous. Every unique person is so specially beautiful. So I was able to have a platform for 10 beautiful years where I could teach women first and foremost how to shift their perspective first, then lip gloss, right? And it was so cool and so amazing. And it was, like I said, it wasn't something I asked for. Stacey London got the show, and they were looking for a makeup artist, and they said, have you, met with Carmindy? And I had already been doing TV, like morning shows like Spring Trends with Almay. So
Yeah.
I was already TV trained, but it gave me this really awesome place to share that intuition. And I had women in my chair on what not to wear sometimes, where I could sense there was abuse. I could sense that there was something too deep to dig into, and it wasn't that kind of show. And I gave them that respect and didn't unpack that. And so I kind of played the look over here game to give them something, because some of them it was deep, and it kind of stayed with me. And so I would always give them a package at the end of like goodies and handwritten notes of how to do it at home, so at least they could start that way.
I have a question about this.
Mhm.
That thinking about you, just sort of visualizing you with someone in a chair, and you're facing them and they're facing you, and you're seeing sort of all of their inner demons, like the things they struggle with. How how has that affected your boundaries? Like, how have you dealt with that as an intuitive person who you're clearly
Mhm.
picking up their energy, you're picking up how they're
I mean,
feeling,
you're touching them.
you're literally
Yeah.
touching them. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm,
sure you
mhm.
have to do work on like how to manage that. And like Heather always says, like you should like observe but not absorb.
Yes, yes, yes.
What was that like for you?
There were when I would sit with a person, even if they were on guard, there was always a little, not always, but if there was a little light, I would go towards that light, and I would find anything I could to connect on that space. It could be anything. It could be like their husband was in the military, and I'm like, my dad was in the Coast Guard. Like I would find something to befriend and make them feel safe with me. Sometimes it was there was no light. And if there was no light, I would just go through the motions and realize that I'm not giving this. This just happened the other day. I was doing a TV show, and it was just a little segment. And I had never had this happen to me, where it was, on a location, and the interviewer came in, and she was extremely negative and very mean, and I was not used to that experience. And I first looked at her and I thought, is there any beam of light? And that doesn't mean she doesn't have any light inside of her. I'm just that day, right? That moment. That's where the boundaries come in. And I realized that there wasn't enough time to find that light. And so I just kind of walled myself, and I went through what I needed to talk about and took deep breaths, and then just kind of shook it off. It took me a little while to shake off that energy, but I wasn't going to help. That's when I realized this person doesn't want my help. She doesn't want the light to come in today for whatever reason. I always try to be compassionate. I don't know what's going on in her life. I don't know what she's dealing with, but I cannot give myself to this person. And so, koosh, and those are the boundaries. But then I would turn, and there'd be a group of people behind me that open to the light. And so I would just throw it in that direction,
Yeah.
because that's where it vibrates out and then continues to grow.
A couple of things really strike me about that. You know
Yeah.
me, I'm like,
Yeah.
I like suck into like reading everybody's everything. That's just who I am as a person. But the first thing is something that I think is really, really important if you are an empathic person, intuitive empathic, right? And that is knowing when the person in front of you is not open to you lifting their energy, connecting, and any of that. Like, and just not taking it personal, which I find very hard, to be honest.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, but just going like, I'm not going to keep putting my energy out in that direction, because
Right.
Yeah.
I'd rather save it for the people, like you said, over there
Well,
that are
'cause-
accepting.
Yeah. Because you know what? They might not be ready at that time to accept it. And that's their journey.
Exactly.
Yes.
It is hard not to take it personally. It took a while for me to shake off that energy because I was like, what was that?
Yeah. Right.
Well, and it's hard as like intuitive people, like we want to help people. So it's hard to learn that lesson of not sort of forcing that on someone. If they're not ready, if they're not willing to receive it, it's not going to hit.
Well,
Yeah.
I think when you grow up intuitive, and let me know if you feel this way, Carmody, but like you feel like your worth, unfortunately, is in sort of helping and managing the energy in every room and being the beam of light. Like what like it feels sometimes like that's my worth. So if I'm not able to do that for you or I'm not doing it, then there must be something wrong with me. It
Yeah.
took me a long time to learn, like, that's actually like, I mean, self-worth is a stupid concept anyways,
It
to be
is,
honest.
but-
Everybody's worth like doesn't
Right.
matter. But like
Right.
to sort of disconnect that and go like, that's actually not about me at all.
Well, and then you
Yeah.
layer on top of that how women are like taught that we have to like help and heal and like we have to perform for everybody and we have to like martyr ourselves for everybody. Like there are a lot of layers at play that I think we're all working to untangle.
Yeah, and there's nothing selfish about doing nothing for anyone for a while and just really reflecting within. It's actually the most healing thing you can do. I'm in a group of women out here. We do full moon goddess circles. It's a huge group of intuitives. I'm going on a retreat at the end of the month with them. And sometimes I show up and beam, and sometimes I just need their beam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We all understand that when we come, we're all going to be in a different place. And that's what's great is that there's no expectation to have to like perform your light. Sometimes you just need to accept it.
That's the beauty of a circle, right? Is that we're all
Yes.
connecting. Right?
I mean, that's literally the point of it, right?
Right.
Is to like, and that's why it's so connected to the moon, right? Because you're cycling. Like
Right.
that's just what's happening. And
Right.
you know, sometimes you're there, sometimes getting to receive from people gives as much to the people as giving to them. You know,
Oh, yeah.
like
Yes.
it's beautiful.
I'm a huge fan of breathwork meditation. And there was this amazing dome in the city that I used to go to in this breathwork circle. And sometimes I'd go in with, my intention, right? Which is usually about business. And all of a sudden I'd be breathing and in this space and I would just feel that all my energy needed to be shifted over to like this gentleman that was two people down.
Mhm.
Something just intuitively told me just take all that energy that you're connecting with and throw it in that direction. And
Mhm.
so you just do that. So that's what's amazing about it. It's not always about you. Sometimes it's about giving to other people, so that's part of the intuition is like, is it my turn? Oh, it's his turn or her turn or their turn. Yeah.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is that it all still benefits you.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? Like that's
Conduit. You're a conduit.
that's
Right.
the design and it's so cool. Well, I also want to know what other kind of intuitive tools you love because I did see on Instagram that you had some tarot cards out the other
Yes.
day and I was like, our girl likes tarot too. So what are some besides the breath work and the full moon circle, like what are some of your go-to tools?
I mean, you name it. I like to try everything. I'm reading The Seeker's Guide right now, Elizabeth Lesser, which is one of my favorite books. The Power of Now. That's my watch. It says now, just to remind me. It's like, what time is it?
Amazing.
Now.
It's now.
So I like to read books like that to keep me on track. I love tarot or any sort of deck. Monty and Amy Farber are two friends of mine that live out here in East Hampton. They write tons of tarot decks and astrology decks. They're astrologists. They're amazing. It's not because what it is, it's an intention. And every New Year's Eve, I just read for a bunch of teenage girls that had never gotten a reading before on New Year's Eve. And they were all like 14, 15, 16. And it was spot on. I mean, each one was like, because what it is, it's a tool to be able to just connect all that intention that you have, all that intuition that you have, all that energy you have. And it creates a portal. So it's not like what's on the actual card, right? It's not that the cards are magic. You're the magic. It's just, again, a conduit to pull it in. And so when people are like, oh, tarot cards, that's ridiculous. You can't predict the future. I'm like, no, you are. You're doing it for yourself. You're just using it. It's like people that go to church and pray. It's the same thing. Any sort of ritual is the same thing. It's bringing your intention into focus.
Yes.
So it's so important. So yeah, I love tarot deck. I mean, I'll do anything. I'll walk on the beach, jump in the ocean, meditate, full moon circles. Like I've tried things that I don't like. Like I tried to do a sweat lodge where they make it pitch black, and I'm like, panic attack, can't do it. Like, so I'll give it a go to see, as much as I can connect with, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, no, tarot cards, like crystals. People are like, oh, holding a crystal, like crystals don't have magic. I'm like, no, you have the magic. But it's, again, it's something to wear to remind you to laser focus on.
Absolutely. I think that's one of my favorite things about tarot or any kind of
Yeah.
card in general is that like it's such a great way to almost like break the energetic ice and like put, because if
Yes.
you're reading something in someone, they have to be in the right state, right? Like
Right.
they have to be there to receive it so you can really understand. And like
Yeah.
something about just pulling out a card and talking about it, it just like shifts that so nicely. And it's like you don't need the card, but it
No.
just helps everybody like have a good starting point.
Yeah, exactly.
You're so right. It's like opening a door. Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
that's really good way of saying it.
Yeah.
Icebreaker.
Yeah, yes. I am also struck by her. So we talk about the universal fears and the human desires. So just so you know about me, I'm always assessing what everybody is. So that's
Yeah.
just like my thing. Like as soon as someone starts talking, I'm like, they're this, and this. Like literally before we started, I said to Jamie, this is what I think Carmindy's
Right.
are. But your love and connection desire is so strong.
Yes.
It's so awesome. So have you heard of these?
No, that's why I'm so fascinated.
So the human desires are love and connection, significance, contribution, variety, certainty, and growth. So
Uh,
we all want all of those all the time. That's what your intuition is always doing. It's helping you seek those things. But everybody has a top two.
Right.
And so if you're trying to, like, if I'm trying to help somebody past a block or I'm trying to work with someone, I want to know, even if I just want to talk to them, I want to know what theirs are because everything that they do and everything that they take in is going to be filtered through feeding those. Does that make sense?
yes, yes,
So,
yes.
and then there's the universal fears, which I'll tell you in a second. But I am so struck by your love and connection. Like I don't know if you can hear it or pick up on it. Maybe now that I'm telling you, you will. But like literally everything you're like, and this is how it helps you connect,
Right.
and this is how you shine and connect the light. Like everything is that for you. And I mean, Jamie and I are both love and connection people too. So this is like bias, but like those are always my favorite people.
Oh, good.
For our
Love
listeners, if you want to like brush up on these, we have episodes about
We do.
these.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm gonna
so
I'm gonna
desire.
definitely listen to
Yeah.
those.
Yes.
But definitely contribution. Carmindy is big on contribution.
Contribution,
obviously.
and that's what we guessed. We guessed those two.
But also variety.
Oh, I was gonna say when she was talking about like the jumping in, I was like, oh, she's a variety girl too. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that about you. But
Yeah.
it's so, I mean, you have the same top two as me, so obviously we should be best friends forever. But I think when you look at the world in a way of like, I want to make sure I find a way to connect to each person and find a way to contribute to them.
Right.
I think it's a really hard way to exist based on my own experience,
Yes.
but I also think it's a really awesome way. Like it's like a double-edged sword. Like it's a really powerful way to kind of be in the world, but it's also a really it's you are always the person who's managing the energy of every room, I think. Like,
It's
do
true.
you
And it
really?
can be quite lonely, because I am this person who, by the way, I love who I am. I love my life. And even though I've had extreme successes and extreme failures, and it's never been easy. It's always kind of been a little bit of a struggle. And I find that, like, I'm 52 years old. I'm going to be 53 in March. I'm single. I have no desire to get married, to live with a man. I never wanted kids. I've been married. I've had long-term relationships. I'm open, but it's not on the forefront. I don't online date. I worry about my business, not so much. Obviously, we all need to make money, but I worry that the women aren't going to understand that I'm there to help them, that these are products that are affordable, that this is easy, that it's going to make it's anxiety-free beauty. how am I going to convince them that they don't need the contour, that the highlight is light and light is energy and bounce energy off your face? I'm constantly thinking of how I'm going to get them reprogram their minds
Right.
to a higher, and of course I'm selling product, but it's bigger than that. I'm selling a philosophy.
Yeah.
And I'm using makeup as a way to get there. And so I named each product Be in Your Light highlighter, you magnify your shine lip gloss, universal love blush, I define eyeliner, all the things that were little mantras to help. I mean, you've seen the logo. I'm like, how can I get the moon, which is women's empowerment, and the beams of light, right? So it's like the moon represents women, the beams of light are empowerment. So it's subliminal love. And I worry about that more than anything. So like it's a loneliness, because it's like you're constantly thinking of how I can give and help that. So sometimes you're like, oh, I haven't given myself much, but I rather live this way than any other way. I couldn't be comfortable living any other way.
Absolutely. I mean, I relate to that a lot. Jamie's always yelling at me that I don't have to force everyone, like you don't have to get everyone to know exactly why you're doing everything. Like you don't need to do that. Like people will just come to the thing, like, because
Right.
like your products, like the name and like the thought and the energy and like wanting to contribute to people in the way that you do, that comes out. Like people are drawn to that because of it.
Right.
You don't have to make sure they know it. But when you are a contribution person, that's really hard because you kind of need, it's almost like it's not really validation, but you need to know like, did you get the thing? And like, did it help you? Like, did it do the thing I wanted it to for you?
Right. Exactly. I mean, that was another hard thing, is getting the price point down. I realized that not everybody can go out there and afford a $36 mascara. It's ridiculous, especially when you have to replace it every 2 months, 3 months.
Right.
So it's like, okay, what can I get rid of? Well, boxes. Because like, when was the last time you bought a mascara or a lip gloss and then used it and put it right back in the box it came in? Never. That goes right in the trash. So it's waste. It's expensive. You're paying for that. I wanted to make it simple packaging and affordable for everyone. So all of these choices I made with other people in mind also sometimes can hurt your bottom line, because you're like, oh, well, it's not so popular. You're not doing A, B, C, D, and E. You're not in Sephora. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. And it's like, I can't look at that. All I can do is look at what I'm supposed to be doing and knowing that it's right. And if it takes a lot longer, or if it's not as ginormous, well, so be it, but it's the right thing to do. And
That is
I
like
know.
the most refreshing thing I have heard somebody say in a long time.
Truly is
Not easy. It's not, I mean, it's not easy, but it's the right thing to do.
Well, I think it also helps that the products are such good quality. Like
Yeah.
Carmindy sent us like samples,
Yes.
and they're so good.
We gush over them all the time.
And my
Yeah.
daughter stole them from me. She had
Yes.
all the lip glosses in her backpack at
Yeah.
school. I'm like, where did the lip glosses go?
Yeah.
She's like, oh, they're here in my backpack.
That's so funny. That's so funny. I know my friend, she was like, I can't find my mascara. She found it in her teenager's bag.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it when you're trying to make people feel better about themselves, and like the energy of like someone else's makeup line is just to like look like this celebrity or cover up these parts of yourself,
or be like the most expensive and be the most trendy, and like
Yeah.
your line doesn't feel like that.
No,
I want it to be simple. Like, I don't follow trends when I create, because I want it to be timeless. Although a cream blush looks great, I try to make things wearable for all ages. And if you are in your 70s and you have wrinkled skin and you put on cream blush and it starts slipping and sliding and moving into no. So a sheer jet milled powder blush that's easier and faster, and you don't have to blend, and it lasts longer, that makes sense. So yeah, it might not be on trend, because I don't want trend. I want forever day-to-day staples that you're going to have forever. That's the key. Of course you can play with trends, have fun, but I mean, in terms of your daily life, these are your go-tos.
Yeah, and when you use those products, because that's the energy wrapped in them, you naturally feel better, because that's how energy works, right? Like the intention of this product is to make women feel better about themselves. it's going to happen when you put it on. Like, I don't think people understand how powerful that is and how much that affects you.
Well, and there's real thought behind this. Like, I'll give you two examples. The 5-minute face. The 5-minute face is not just how to get ready fast and these 5 products. I actually, when I was writing my first book, The 5-Minute Face, I was researching all these scientific case studies about what makes a person the most beautiful. And again, like I said earlier, standards had changed, and it wasn't when they had asymmetrical features, because, you know, some tribes considered a long neck to be beautiful, and other places, you know, this was beautiful. There was one consistency that rang true all the way back to prehistoric man, and that is, a woman was at her most beautiful when she was fertile, obviously, or in love. Okay, because, like, you know, I'm in menopause, so that ship's passed, but being in love mimics the same look of being fertile. It's that same feeling, that same energy. So 5 magical things happen. Your skin glows because you're radiating love, right? So that's how I created my highlighter. Then your eyes capture attention because you're trying to get your suitor. So that's a little liner and mascara. Your cheeks flush on a cellular level because you're blushing. And then your lips get engorged with blood because you want to make out. That's the 5-minute face. So I created 5 universal products to put in those 5 places that work on everyone from 18 to 80 to restore the look of being in love. So it's more than just getting ready fast. There's
It's
a
so much
real
more.
thought behind it. And then even the blush color, like, people look at the blush color and they're like, that is not a shade I would pick. Well, I studied Renaissance paintings and looked at portraiture of the 1700s and 1800s, so I could see women of color in portraiture. And these master painters use this shade in their paintings to mimic the look of blood under skin. So this color, although it looks a little orangey, is the color of red blood under skin. And when you put it on very lightly on people who are very fair, or you can layer it for people who have darker skin tone, it's that natural flush.
Yes, I love that.
I did have that thought with the blush.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work for me. And then I
Yeah.
put it on and I was like, ooh,
Just a little bit. Yeah. I mean, it's the only blush I have in my makeup kit.
so
It's just
good.
a tiny little bit. And it really looks like you've been, you know, running outside, because when you put on like a pink blush or like a brownish blush, that's not your natural state, right? So this mimics that natural state.
I was like, if Carmindy said to wear it,
I'll
I'm
wear it.
wearing
Right.
it. If that's what she said. I've been doing her
Right.
5-minute face
Yeah.
forever, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it.
She's
Yeah.
the boss.
Yeah. I'm curious about kind of going back to the boundaries thing. For being somebody who I'm imagining people want to come up and talk to you, because being on 10 years was What Not to Wear, right?
Yes. Yes.
I
And still on, and I think in 117 countries. Something
It's
crazy.
so awesome. It's such a good show. Oh my God. All right. Anyways, I won't gush about it. But how do you manage the boundaries of people like wanting to come up to you, sort of feeling like they know you? Like, is that a difficult thing for you? Like, being so, like, you have such bright, warm energy. Like, how do you approachable? Yeah. How do you manage that?
Well, I mean, these days I don't get it very often. Believe it or not, in a lot of other countries, I get it when I'm traveling, because they're seeing it for the first time. In the United States, it doesn't happen so much. But when it does, I feel honored that I was able to touch these people, because they always say the same thing. They always say, you made people feel good. Not once has somebody come up and said, wow, that smoky eye you did, or, oh my God, I love that lip gloss. They're like, you made people feel good. So that reinstates the reason why I did it. And that always makes me feel good. When we were in the height of it,
Mhm.
and like, and in the middle of when it was at its peak and we were really getting approached a lot, there were sometimes people that came in wanting to give everything, and you have to be lovely and excuse yourself, and you know, because sometimes it was a little intense, because they could see that you were an empath and they were open, so they were like, and here's everything about my mother and my childhood and and you're like, I'm not a therapist, you know, sorry.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah,
like they lose the ability to to read you, that you're going like, okay,
Yes,
I'm also
yeah.
a big fan in boundaries when it comes to people that no longer serve you in your life, whether they're toxic friends or toxic relationships. I love blocking.
Oh,
Oh, do you? Tell us
Blocking.
more.
yes.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
You
Because
mean like literal and energetic walking?
If they are toxic people,
Good.
do not even, and you know, and your intuition is telling you it is time to go, it is time to block it. Because then you're not pulled and second guessing yourself, or if they reach out trying to manipulate, it's time, you're done.
It's
And
that's such a hard lesson to learn, but then once you learn it, it feels so freeing.
it
yeah.
does. It
Yeah.
Well,
does.
if you have to protect the energy you have to
Yeah.
give. You have to protect that from people who, I don't want to say don't deserve it, but like they're not in a place to get it.
Right.
And
Right.
you can sense that they're not going to get in this lifetime. They're
Exactly.
just not going to get it in this lifetime. And so therefore you cannot waste your energy on that.
It's so,
And then there's some people that might be a little toxic, but you're going to leave the door open because maybe they'll shift, right? But
yeah.
you know who you need to block.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
I think my favorite tool for that, like to question it, because I think people like the three of us who we like, I just naturally love everybody. I also really don't like humans, but I love all the humans at the same time. It's very complicated, right?
I know, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So I think I'm always trying to say, like, how much importance does this person put on my emotional well-being?
Right.
That's right.
Right. And like if it's like, oh, they care,
Right.
cool. But if they're like actually trying to make me feel bad,
Right.
goodbye forever.
Yeah.
Like no thank you. Like
Yeah.
that's a hard thing to learn though.
It's also hard too when you have friends that do that sometimes, but then they balance it out with all this great stuff. So you're like, I'll deal with a little piece of your insecurity because I've got such great stuff over here. But if that's out of balance, then
Yeah.
your answer.
Yes.
So
Right.
everybody's got their little something, right? Everybody's got their little annoying something that you're like, it's because, your mom was like this and you're like this and you're, a Virgo or whatever, you're like, I get it. You can give them like a little bit. But if it's out of balance and out of whack, it's time to move on.
100%.
Yes.
Amen.
Speaking of Virgo,
Oh yeah, I knew you were gonna ask this.
do you know your top three?
I know my entire astrology chart.
Of course she does.
Yay.
Of course she does.
So funny story. My mom actually studied astrology when I was a kid, and my third grade science project is we did a astrology chart for the teacher, and she didn't like it very much because she's like, "That's not science." And my mom's like, "It's one of the oldest sciences in the world." But anyway, I love astrology.
Oh
I am
my
a triple Aries.
You are?
Yes,
Triple Aries.
That's incredible.
Oh my God.
triple Aries. Mars in Capricorn exalted, Venus in Aquarius. So yeah, it's kind of
I
wild.
love that.
No wonder you have so much beams of light shooting out of you, Carmindy. Oh,
Exhausting.
oh my, I must be. There's nothing to balance that for you.
That's incredible.
Oh my
I'm
God.
glad I asked.
I'm really glad you asked.
Yes.
I looked up her sun sign
Oh, yeah.
to be prepared. That's the kind of preparation we do.
I love it. Well, listen, I'll tell you why I love astrology so much. And people who think it's just horoscopes, they don't get it. It is the blueprint to your life. And if the moon can affect tides, right? That is, planetary energy that's affecting bodies of water. And that's what we are. And there is something to it. And I'm telling you, if you have it done in a proper way and you have a real astrologist really kind of suss it out, it is not a soothsaying device. It is not a predictor of sorts. What it does is it gives you an understanding of your fundamental personality traits, what to fix, what to pay attention to. I know that impatience was a big one, and I had that times 3, right? Which got me in a lot of my troubles when I was younger. Temper that I had, I was luckily able to, just chill that out early on. And now I know how to deal with that, how to deal with anxiety. Like it gives you the tools to be a better person yourself and recognize in you that, oh, there's my reactive tendency, or there's my, and when you know that, you can say it out loud and self-adjust. And so I think it's more important astrologically, not so much to know other people, but to know yourself. And then how I use it with other people is I had a really bad business situation a few years ago, actually many years ago now. I had started a brand with a bad group of people, and it was a big disaster, and it left me with nothing, just a complete failure. Taught me so much. This time around, when I got a business partner and I was doing a deal, I did all their readings. I had their charts done before I made the decision to sign any contracts. And I'm telling you what a game changer that was, because you got to really see how these people were going to probably respond in times of, bad times and good times. And are they going to work hard? Are they going to disappear? Are they going to finish what they start? You can actually see a lot of that when you kind of put them together with your own. And I think it's important for business.
I mean, what's the famous quote? I feel like I butcher it every time, but it's like millionaires have
Oh,
like
like financial advisors.
yeah, and billionaires have astrologists. Yeah.
It's the truth. Kings and queens use them to plot and plan wars.
I mean, it's that famous patriarchy problem,
Yes.
right? Where it's like, let's make everyone think this is silly and dumb, but like we're
We all
all
use it.
actually using it.
Exactly.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that a lot of young girls who, read a couple things, then blame their bad behavior on it. Well, I'm just a this. Well, no, you have to take responsibility for the positives and the negatives. So,
Well, that's like I love using astrology for all the reasons you said, and also for like just accepting who I am. Like, yeah, that's gonna happen because it's literally written in the stars that I'm stubborn. I'm a
yeah,
Taurus. Like, you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
literally right there that I am going to need, my creature comforts. And like,
Yes.
so I might feel a little bit bad about that. And like, it doesn't mean I have the license to just act like a jerk to people about it.
No.
But like, if I can just accept it, then it's much easier to adjust it than fighting against
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah. It's like I'm still going to be the person that jumps off the cliff paragliding, but this time I'm going to make sure that the guy I'm doing it with is licensed.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff. You just got to adjust. You're still going to be who you are, but you're just going to be smarter about it.
Absolutely. Have you really been paragliding?
Oh yeah, but a bunch of times. Yeah. I'm a little Action Jackson that way. I like that.
Can I swing us
Yeah.
sort of away from what we've been talking about? But
Yeah.
you mentioned just super briefly that you're in menopause right now.
Yeah, full on, full blown.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thanks. It's actually, I mean, it comes with pros and cons.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna ask you is like, what would you, from all of your many different perspectives, intuitively, like in the makeup world and the fashion world, what would you love for people to know more about menopause? Because I feel like it's still one of those
Hush,
sort of
hush.
uncharted territories that people are only now
You-
talk about.
Well, I have to thank Stacey London for this, because Stacey London is on the forefront of changing the narrative around menopause and normalizing it. And she has done a fantastic job. And I was on the phone with her for most of this journey, asking questions, because she was having summits and knowing all of the CEO of these big menopause companies. But what we realized was, having a company and selling an oil, that's not what menopause is about. This has got to be changed on a healthcare level. And it is a stage of life. It's not a disorder. It's not a disease. It's like going through adolescence. It's a stage of life. And the fact that I had to go to 4 different doctors and 3 summits to figure out what I needed to help support me through menopause is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And there needs to be one-stop shopping. I know that there's a new like telehealth company that's coming up, that's going to be your one-stop shopping. You basically sign up, and all of your needs, whether it's hormone replacement, hair loss, dietary things, peptide shots, you can go to one place. I think we need to see more of those in menopause. I found out, like, who knew? I have factor V Leiden, which is a blood mutation disorder. I can't take estrogen. Nobody asked me this. Nobody even tested me for this. I was on birth control pills for years on estrogen. Nobody ever looked into this. The only reason I found out is because when my father passed away, they told me that he had factor V Leiden. I then had to get tested. So then I tell endocrinologists and menopause doctors, by the way, I have this. They're not even looking. They just want to write you a script. And it's like, I've had to kind of be my own advocate and figure out what works for me and what doesn't. And I finally have the magic cocktail, but my God, was it exhausting. So there needs to be an easier way, a one-stop shop. I got to meet this woman, Dr. Molly McBride, who just started an amazing menopause clinic in New York City. She does it. You can do telehealth with her. You can do it on FaceTime or whatever. They're starting to pop up, but it needs to be like dentists. They need to be everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
For perimenopause and menopause, because hormones are no joke. And that's the hard thing. It's like for men, oh my God, it's like covered by insurance, everything's easy to get. And it's really difficult for us to find these things.
100%. I mean, I think as someone in perimenopause,
Same.
both of us have had to have hysterectomies. We definitely have hormone issues. I think it might go along with being intuitive in a world that doesn't really
Agreed.
operate that way,
Right.
but we can talk about that later.
Right.
But I think it's hard to not just give up on trying to feel better. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because it's so frustrating. And I think of like the means that we have,
Right.
like we're white women. I mean, like we have privilege there,
Right.
like and how hard it is for us to get any sort of answer or help or understanding or not be brushed off, that like, it's really hard for women to not just go like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to feel awful all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, where people don't even have health
Healthcare.
insurance sometimes. Like it's they're so complicated.
It's absolutely complicated and wrong and not okay. And it has to start at a healthcare level. And unfortunately, is there a lot of money in that for them? Like, that's the thing. It's got to, and that's what sucks about our healthcare system here. But the good news is that we have this, and this is where social media is a good thing. Follow Stacey London on Instagram, follow, like Dr. Molly McBride, who talks about menopause all the time and perimenopause. If you start following these people, you can start gathering this information, because these are people who really know and they want to get the word out. So that's what you can do in the meantime. And then you can kind of cherry pick and find what works best for you.
I mean, that's what was always so dangerous about women, was that the gossiping used to mean something different. We like to talk about the real origin of words, right? So like that's how we've always broke through these kinds of issues and this kind of, being held back.
These like networks of like
yes,
women, like
right.
you're describing like women, like, yeah, exactly. You're describing women talking and like forcing our way through these problematic systems just by like doing what women do, which is actually working collectively, working together.
Yes, this is a resource I found. Oh, that happened to me. I mean, that's how we have always kept any of this stuff going, right?
Yes.
And it survived.
My really good friends started this amazing organization. It's called the X Experts, and it's for women going through divorce. Because I remember going through a divorce in the 2000s. I had no help. I had nowhere to turn. I didn't know what to do. Oh my gosh, now they have a whole community of women who need help when they're going through a divorce, no matter how difficult it is, whether they're, would they have kids or not have kids, from finding resources for attorneys, knowing what their rights are. Like, it's incredible. The Cancer Cartel is another one. These are women that are raising money to give to women to take care of their basic needs because they're dealing with cancer, whether it's a phone bill or, grocery shopping. Like, these are communities that I'm finding that I'm like, oh, this is awesome. How can I share this? How can I be a part of it? How can I help spread the word?
Yes.
But there's a lot of wonderful things out there on social.
Absolutely. And that's how we keep it going, right? That's how we get the information to people. It's by sharing and talking about it. And that's what's always been so magical about witchy women like us. I mean, that's what we do, right?
Yeah. It's so funny because sometimes I'll get like, these newsletters and it's like, what this celebrity wore, what that celebrity wore. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
I want to hear like what we just found out about hormones, or like, another way that proves that, you can sleep better at night. Like, those are the things that mean more to me than like what somebody was wearing.
Yes. What you're wearing is cool, like thumbs up, but like, what are you about? What have you learned that you can share with the class? We want to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens in menopause, is like the blood and the situation and everything is not happening down here. It moves up to here. And now we're thinking differently and we're resonating differently and we're taking all that energy and kind of taking that knowledge and growing in that way.
Right.
I think what used to strike me, so Jamie and I pre-COVID times used to run full moon women's circles.
Oh,
And
cool.
what really struck me was women who were in menopause, when we would talk about cycling, they would say, I don't cycle anymore. And we would both go, yes, you do. You just don't bleed, right? Like you're still following those you're still, it's just this one element of it is happening, right? Like, so I think that's such a cool way to look at it. Like you're not bleeding here, but like the blood is going here. Yes.
Yeah, it's just all that energy has shifted into this more knowing place. And you know what happens? It's funny. I was actually, who was I looking at? It was some celebrity who was in her 60s talking about how like men don't look at her, or no, how people say men don't look at her and she's not attractive. And she's like, no, I'm attractive. I just know more and take less. And it's true. It's like when you get to this stage, you don't have time for BS. You don't need the attention. You're wiser, you're sharing, you're connecting. So all that stuff goes away. So yeah, a lot of people kind of go, oof, I don't want to go near that. That scares me. And it should.
Yeah. I agree.
Exactly.
I mean,
If it scares you, don't come near me because I don't want to be with somebody who finds that scary.
the crystals are working. The
Exactly.
crystals are working if you're backing away.
Exactly.
Along those same lines, I feel so being intuitive and studying, the history of women, the most powerful and the most scary to everybody, women, are women who are over the age of 40, right?
That's right. Yeah, terrifying.
Yes.
Hold the crones.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, it makes sense because they are the wisest. I mean, we're in that group, so like we're talking about ourselves too, but like they're the wisest. They're the ones who have been through it and have learned the stuff and are ready to share it and to help people. And I think you can still see, especially in the beauty industry, right? That like we're still trying to like vilify them or make them like a scary thing, like, oh, you don't look like you're 20 anymore. And it's kind of like,
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
No, and I think that society has sort of cast women off after a certain age.
Yes.
They're like not important anymore. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter like how appealing or attractive you are to people. But I think that's what I love about your brand, Carmindy, is that like I don't feel like I feel like with your makeup, you care about how I feel.
I do.
But you don't care about like whether or not I look great or attractive to
I want you to feel good, period. Yeah. I want you to feel good. I don't want you to feel, never once. I have never contoured a face in my life.
Right.
yeah.
Ever. And I've been a professional makeup artist my entire life. So that says something right there. And it's like, if you look at any of my work, it's what I'm doing is I'm taking a face, my eyes blur when I see a face, and what's beautiful pops out, whether it's an eyelash, a cheekbone, an iris color, a crooked smile, and whatever pops out, I just intuitively know a thing here and a thing there, and boom, all of a sudden they see it too. And it's this, and it doesn't so much translate all the time on QVC or TikTok or whatever. I don't care. If you do it when you're feeling it, that's what matters.
It translates in the energy of the person that you're doing it to, because you see them look at themselves in the mirror, right? I'm just picturing you doing like the spin on what not to wear, right, into the mirror, and their face, and that's like
how they hold themselves.
Yes, and like that's what you give people, and that to me is what beauty is. It's like shine.
And like going back to what you're saying about being cast off at a certain age, I've told this story before, but the most beautiful woman I ever met, that's one of my favorite stories, was not a model or a celebrity. I was in Orcas Island in Washington State having lunch with a friend, and this beautiful woman walks into the room, and she's glides over to us and she gives us her business card, and we start chatting with her, and she had just opened up a bed and breakfast. She was 90 years old. And she said that she, you know, followed the traditional path. She got married, she had kids, she took care of her husband and her children. Husband had passed on, kids had moved away. Her dream was to go to culinary school. She did so in her 70s or 80s. And then she took her property and turned it into a bed and breakfast, and she was promoting it at 90. That was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, because of what she did and how she lived. And she radiated this light. It wasn't about, oh, I did this model or this celeb. Nope, it was that woman. And she was 90.
And isn't that what is so dangerous to everybody, is that
Right.
like it, when you start to go like, I don't buy into it anymore that only youth is beautiful.
Right.
And I don't buy into it anymore that I need to try to look 19, or like that there's one, way hair color or one, like
Right.
if I just don't buy into that and at any age can feel beautiful about, like, feel good about myself and feel beautiful, well, that's being about as dangerous as you can possibly be. You
Well,
can't.
I think that the word danger is good, because when you're young and vulnerable and trying to look young and vulnerable, you can be controlled.
Correct.
Yes.
Exactly.
Or at least they think they can control you. But an older woman who has knowledge and power and is confident and doesn't need that and cannot be controlled, that is dangerous.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
with this kind of focus on keeping everyone looking vulnerable and young, it's this kind of twisted way of power and control.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I have a question about, this is something that, this is how my brain works, so bear with me on the question, but like, you're somebody who I would imagine has just had everyone's insecurities always being thrown at them, right? Like doing someone's, I just think of the times I've had my makeup done and you're almost like apologizing for your own face, and like, that's so dumb that we do that, right? But having to take that all in and like having to sort of, I guess you don't have to, but you do, like, lift people up through that or walk someone into feeling better. What have you sort of learned about just like us all being insecure? Like what kind of insights, or like what do you learn from having to manage that all the time?
I look at it this way. It's such a waste of time. And we're all guilty of it. I mean, all of us are guilty of it from time to time, but it's what you practice. It's like working out or practicing, learning a new language. You have to do it consistently. So you got to catch yourself and not allow that to happen, because I can't tell you how many women I've said, oh, yeah, beautiful skin. Oh, no, it's so wrinkled. Oh, yeah, beautiful eyes. Oh, they're too close together. I'd rather have your eyes. They automatically fight a compliment. And it's because the programming, either they program themselves, or they had a parent that did it, or an ex-boyfriend or whatever, but they hold on to those negative thought patterns, right? So I have so many times that I see beauty and I say it, and then it is either deflected or they point something else out. And I see this as being really detrimental to their own self-love and happiness. So you have to practice. You have to practice stopping that negative thought pattern and being in that beautiful place. And it's not easy, but it happens all the time. But it is possible to change. You can change it.
Yeah, and like pointing it out to other people. Like,
Mm.
I mean, you should probably do it to people you know. I'm guilty of doing it to strangers sometimes too, but
No,
like,
you should do it. I call it contagious compliments.
yeah, like,
Compliment.
don't
If you
let
see it, say it.
yes, and like don't let someone like shit all over themselves in front of you without being like, no, like call it
Right.
out. Like we're always yelling at people, women, for apologizing for like taking up space or breathing or
Yeah,
existing, right? Like
ridiculous. I'm
how
so sorry.
often do people apologize for like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any makeup on? Like,
Yeah,
why would you
what? I know that I get a lot because they meet me and I'm a makeup artist, but chances are I don't have any on at the time either. And what I say to a lot of these women too that complain about the way they look, I'm like, when you're 95 years old, if you're lucky, and you're sitting on your front porch and you're looking at photos of yourself right now, you're going to be like, what was I thinking? I should have been running around with my hair on fire dancing. Like, look at that. And all I did is worry about, oh, my thighs were too fat or my eyes were too close together. Who cares? It's a shell. Like, forget it. Like, do the best you can, make yourself feel as good as possible. Listen, self-care does release endorphins in your brain. There is a serotonin release that happens when you self-care. And I think that taking care of yourself is important. But at the same time, nitpicking and judging every little detail is awful, because we're all heading in the same direction if we're lucky. And I mean, how guilty are all of us of looking at a picture going, oh my God, look at, I was so this, I was so that, and I thought I was so bad,
Yeah.
you
All the
know,
time.
and it's ridiculous.
And
It's
it's hard to separate that, right? Like, because
Yeah.
society has taught women to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and even I was just on at Christmas listening to my mother and my aunt talk about being in a picture and like how they don't like how they look, right? And I was just thinking like, oh, like we're doing this about ourselves, but we're passing it on.
Yeah.
We're
yeah, oh yes.
yeah, right?
Right.
And so it's hard to sometimes like take that in and go like, I need to separate these voices of what I've been taught that like I owe everybody some version of myself, right? Like
Right.
because
Oh.
I identify as a woman, I have to wear makeup, but like somebody who's identifies as a man doesn't. Like that doesn't make any sense, right?
Right.
Like to pull yourself away from that, so it can be hard, but it's so important to do what you're saying, and I really do think that's the ultimate self-care is to like catch it
Yeah.
and to practice it consistently and to like call it out on other people, but like check in with yourself about it, because that's really the only way it shifts at all. And
Right.
like you said, you don't want to
Kindness.
be 90 and be like, why didn't I just enjoy being young and hot?
Exactly. I remember there was, I think it was the last book that I worked on. It was called Bloom, A Girl's Guide to Growing Up Gorgeous. And it was for tweens. Unfortunately, it was too late because they were already onto TikTok, and most of them were, I just didn't get it early. I think it might have worked about 10 years before. But during that shoot, I had these beautiful teenage girls. They were all my friends' daughters. I didn't have any models. They were friends' daughters, and a variety like you can't imagine, everybody. And I remember there was one mom friend of mine who, and it was about empowering yourself and celebrating your uniqueness, and how to feel good, and not playing the compare and despair game. And as I was doing makeup on one of the young ladies, her mom was in the mirror going, oh, I look so fat. And I was like, you gotta go get a coffee, go walk around the block. You're literally teaching what I'm trying to unteach here by being here, standing in the mirror and talking about how you look in the mirror while your teenage daughter is getting her makeup done, learning how to empower herself and feel good. So you got to go. So it is true. We are conditioned either through parents or society or boyfriends, or you know how many people wanted to wear it was when they were teenagers in school being bullied like I was. Why are you now in your 50s and you've accomplished all these great things and you still remember what these kids on the playground said to you? Stupid as that.
I know.
Right.
I agree. We talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we like to dig into like the energy, the root cause, you know, behind everything going on. And I feel like it always goes back to somewhere between the age of 6 and like 16 that you're like, well, this one person said this shitty thing to me a couple times. And now
Right?
Well, and you like wrote something about yourself.
it became a part of my story. It
Right.
became a
About
part
who
of,
you are.
yes. And like, that's
Crazy. And then yet you get complimented 1,600 times. And why are you not making that part of your story?
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
exactly. It's the way the ego works, man. It's
Yeah.
no fun.
Yep.
I'm wondering, so you said that you were growing up, you felt really different. You said you were overweight, braces, all that stuff.
Yeah, I grew up in Huntington Beach, California. So everybody was like Baywatch, right? And here I was, awkward, and I look back now and I'm like, oh, it was adorable. But like at the time, you're not, because I got bullied and teased a lot. And it really, I look at it now going, what a wonderful thing, because it projected me into this world, and I'm able to connect with people and make them feel good. So it was a gift, that bullying and teasing. And I can look at it, because of the intuitiveness and being in touch with it, as these children were suffering in their own way. They didn't know how. But nowadays with social media, it's a lot harder and it's a lot more intense. And I just don't think that they're getting those positive messages out there, and they're not learning as quickly, because the minute there's one bully, there's another, and then you have to look like this person and that person, and da 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 da. It's just in your face. Like, we still had times to just go out and go to the beach and figure it out and cry in our bedrooms for a second and then get over it. And like nowadays, you really don't have that opportunity.
Right. It's always in your pocket to have it there. I agree. How do you think feeling that way growing up has like informed what you do? Because I'm always so struck by how the wounds our inner child get, we end up so many people end up spending a lot of time healing that in other people, right? Like
Yes.
it's so magical, I think. But like, how do you think growing up that way and then being perceived, and I'm sure you hear all the time how beautiful you are, and then being in the beauty industry, like how did that sort of inform how you approach this now?
Well, again, like I said, having those real insecurities as a kid, I also swung the pendulum this way and was putting on way too much makeup when I was still playing and being into this. But it was my mother who was the watercolorist that taught me how to see sheer washes of color and how there's beauty in so many different things. So I slowly began swinging that way. And then when I was able to make people feel good, I'm like, this is addictive. I love this feeling. God, that feeling of making somebody happy was like, whoa, this is so good. So I think that I would not have gotten that unless I was bullied and had those insecurities and then healed from them. And then I'm like, okay, well, how did I heal from them? Well, I used to do 5 things, these steps, right? So then I started writing about these steps and then teaching these steps to people. It's how to achieve soul beauty. Right. So there's 5 steps. Number 1 is mirror mantras. So that's changing your brain pattern of sit. And if you hear like, oh, look at these dark circles, you're like, I have beautiful irises. You always have to say something positive, even if you hear something negative, because you're retraining your thought process. The other thing is feature focus. Find what you love about yourself and celebrate it. So if you have terrible lips or a crooked eyebrow or something you don't like, focus on what you do like. Feature focus. Look at what you love. Celebrate that. Play with that, right? Then another thing is practice the ancient feminine ritual of beautification. Again, it raises the endorphins in your mind. That ritual of self-care makes you feel empowered when you're doing it, again, not as a tool of insecurity, but as a tool of empowerment. Another step is to let go of the bullies, what they said to you. Like I had a hairdresser tell me when I was really young that my forehead was so big that you could shine a movie on it and that I should wear bangs for the rest of my life. And I wore bangs for years because of it.
Oh, rude.
That's stuck in my head. So you have to let go, saying maybe he wanted to cut back. Like you don't know what people say or why they say it, but let it go. It has no bearing on you. And then the last thing is practice the contagious compliments. If you see something, say something. You don't know what kind of day somebody's had. You could be at the checkout counter and the woman could be going through a horrible divorce. And if you like, wow, you have beautiful hair. She's like, thank you. You just shifted her, just even for a moment.
You can make someone's whole day. I mean, people have complimented me before, and I've just been like, the rest of the day felt good. Like, it's such an easy thing to do for people. All of that is amazing, by the way. I love how the 5 steps are so like
the 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also really struck by how, so we would talk about how creativity and intuition are like cousins, right? Like they float together. But like your story is so full of like sort of creativity grabbing you and like pulling you into something intuitive and like pulling into your business and stuff. Yeah, I love that.
Thanks. It's been a fun ride. And the thing is that for me, it was never about, when I see these influencers and TikTokers that are like, the makeup is just, the precision of, and it's like an oil painting, and that's not why I got into this. Right. I didn't get into this although that is fun and there's nothing wrong with playing with that. But this is more of a movement for women to look and feel good without anything on their faces or one thing on if they just decide that it's I got you mascara, like this is it, this is what they want to leave the house but they have to have on their mascara. That's their little weapon, right? That's like I'm feel good because I got my mascara on. Then that's all that matters. You don't have to buy the whole line. It's one thing, one magical kind of sword, right? If it's your skin, the lit from within daily prep, you put that on, walk out the door with nothing else but a glow.
That's my favorite. I cannot believe how much of a difference that makes.
Isn't it something?
Incredible. It's awesome. It's so good.
Wait till this comes out. This is the foundation. When you mix the two together, you create like the ultimate
Yes.
We were just saying that when we want the foundation. Okay,
Yes.
so I love that, like the makeup, how you're describing it is kind of how we were talking about tarot cards. Like it's the tool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the
Right.
lip gloss, or for me, the highlighter, like if I have that, I feel like whatever, I can just
Yeah.
throw that in
Yeah.
there. But like
Right.
it becomes the tool. Like the highlighter is, yes, it's enhancing and it's grabbing the light, it's doing all that, but it's also the tool that's making me feel better.
Right.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And it's so it's the same thing as the tarot card when you're going to read it. Like it's just putting you in that energetic space for your own self to feel
To
beautiful.
feel good, right?
Yeah.
You get it. That's the whole line. You get it. You get it. You get it. That makes me so happy. Because sometimes, like you see an Amazon review, and they're like hated everything about it, and you're like, you missed the point. Okay,
You got it. Yeah.
it's
That's
Right,
on them.
exactly.
That's on them for sure.
Yeah.
I love it.
This has been wonderful.
You are wonderful. Will you
so
be
are you guys. I can hang out with you guys any day. Let's do a goddess circle. Where do you guys live?
We're in Massachusetts, right outside of Boston.
Oh, nice. I was just in Boston. That's right. Remember? Because I was, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
CEO lives there, so I will be visiting him again. So next time I'm up there, let's get together, please.
I do drop off and pick up there every
Yeah.
day. My kids.
Please.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Yes.
And I mean,
It's
you know,
wonderful conversation.
I was a huge fan of yours before, so now it's just
Always.
like it's
Yeah.
just another level. Jamie's gonna have to calm me down after this. I've been
Oh, you guys are so awesome. I really enjoy this talking about this kind of stuff because not everybody does. And I think it's so important.
I do too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Everybody go onto Amazon
Definitely go to Amazon.
and buy the Carmindy stuff. I can't go anywhere without the lip gloss either, and the highlighter.
That's
I
my
have,
favorite color too.
oh, I can't read.
Do you guys have the same one?
Sunburst pink.
Summer's pink. That's my favorite.
I'm gonna put it on at the same time as Carmindy just put hers on.
And I have the daily prep on my face every day. So.
And I have
Yay.
I did the 5-minute face this morning. I do it
I
every
need to get the daily prep into a jug for the body.
Oh,
That's what I want to do next.
incredible. So smart.
It's like prepping everywhere.
yes. Yes, please do that. Thank you so much. And so yeah, everybody go buy that.
Definitely.
And maybe we'll force you to come on the podcast again.
Yeah.
Would love that. There was no forcing necessary. Just
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Carmindy.
so much.
you're so welcome.